Christina Universe Citizen presents New Era Religion, Episode 66, Part 2, June 14, 2022. The newest paradigms model of cosmic origins. Continued from Part 1, Episode 65, with overlapping paragraph. Tension and compression is one of the always and only coexisting complementarities. Essential awareness of what may produce stabilized patterns is also an integral necessity of a true democracy's self-regenerative stability and balance. Recalling here that experience always comes before thinking, but not having to factor in accumulations of redundant action, instead generalized law is relevant to the design science of a true democracy's non-redundance. Everything we sense is physical, time, space, sizing, and is brain-sensed phenomena. The size can be microcosmic or macrocosmic. The conceptuality is metaphysical independent of size. To reiterate, metaphysical evolution of human awareness decelerates, slowing to no time at all. Physical evolution accelerates. Self's synergetic awareness of the other's communicated generalized content induces metaphysical observers' generalized conceptual fields of thoughts, consciousness evolution. Self-synergetic awareness of the other's communicated content, some of which might be generalized content, as metaphysical intellect consciously employs its metaphysical conceptual and reasoning mentality to cogitate reliably in respect to equilibrium. Naturally, the cogitation closely corresponds correlatively to awareness of the vector equilibrium, which is the Synergetics model of exact balance. This environmental transformation processes physical energy events that metaphysical intellect associates with the conceptuality of one quantum unit, a quantum module. The tetrahedron as a module represents one quantum of energy. The volumetric unity's integrity patterning is environmentally interaccommodatively intertransforming energy quanta. Therefore, knowing the number of modules in the prime spherical domain correlatedly to the lowest common denominator, the LCD triangle, metaphysical intellect as a function of omnirational, omniconsiderate universe continues to employ its predominantly metaphysical objectives as an anticipatory design science innovating intention. The anticipatory design science intention is correlative to consciousness evolutions, subjective to objective manifesting realization. We have to go through the subjective to reach the objective. The object of this new era religion, episode 65, reiterates the learning and discovery process as consciousness and conceptuality are aware of the operational field's complex design. It is a cosmic hierarchy of significant relevance to the integrating and differentiating metaphysical physical environment, mindfully of a cosmic accounting where everything comes out rationally. This may be through timeless zero-phase unity. The two-ness of omnirational unity by metaphysical generalized conceptioning approaches exactitude at minimum involves the tetrahedron and the vector equilibrium. The tetrahedron is a conceptuality of the minimum thinkable set. The vector equilibrium is tetrahedron's empty set. Zero pulsation in the vector equilibrium is the closest approach to nearest thing that the human mind will ever know to eternity and Yom, eternal, omniscient mind. For millenniums, Yom has been mistakenly identified as God in any spoken or written language anywhere on earth in the likeness of man. This delays consciousness evolution's thought language cosmic conceptioning. Cosmic as in microcosmic and or macrocosmic metaphysical generalized conceptioning is independent of time, space, sizing. That induces reliable cogitations in respect to the vector equilibrium as the model of exact balance. The omnidirectional and omnirational coordination of thought and action suggests an inherent proclivity to obsolete redundant innovations of the PRJWBCS. one of which is the J factor, that historically convinced human populations that its scales could balance whatever the problem was, as the P factor enabled its justified monetary support for the exclusive privileges of lawmaking power in houses of government. Those governments disproportionately threw out of balance and continue to throw out of balance whatever form the governing body manifests. The governing forms rely on the J factor as the ruling claimants, a class of historical self-importance that declare justice to be a more perfect punitive judge to balance two or more opposing conflicts. The opposing conflicts perpetuate adaptations to the manifest forms that were never required by law to generalize the established concepts and false premises. Quid pro quo became a relative satisfaction that does not make the lawmaking scenario and its judicious power more comprehensive, while it enables some irrational transactions to substitute for omnirational solutions. Literally, technically, theoretically, and physically omitting the eternal omniscient mind and metaphysical evolution, ramifying culminations and conflicts of redundance will always occur and recur as the human species mentality is environmentally designed to be adaptive and eventually to reintegrate and restore timeless zero-phase unity, which at minimum is two. The two-ness of the always and only coexisting complementarities of the generalized content, if known and intellectually accredited, as fundamentally a consciously knowledgeable, competent necessity that may have prevented the malfunction into relationships between the PRJWBCS factors. Actuating the essential synergetic course correction could not have been foreseen before the 19th, 20th to 21st centuries. These are overlapping dates from the birth of R. Buckminster Fuller, 1895 through 1983, and my birth, 1938 to today, 2022. An overlapping generation as a viable evolution information gathering local problem solving process of differently induced curiosities in the evolution order, both of which seem least related, but ultimately are interrelated with a unity objective to discover the truth that has been suppressed by inculcation educations that by default slave mentality conditioning perpetuate ignorance of generalized laws and consciousness evolution's most economical way of behaving relative to unity and self in universe. Unlike Niall Ferguson, who was interviewed by Lex Fridman on his podcast number 239, November 8, 2021, that I viewed yesterday evening. Revisiting history to juxtapose and imagine its relevance to the future educating innovations, as instituting truth-seeking for the sake of reenacting the initial iteration is an irrational choice. More obviously, it is history's omission of universe's metaphysical and physical evolution that has yet to be discovered, along with the coordinate system of nature, which is Synergetics, as well as the simple acronym PRJWBCS, as a clarifying contextual parameter. The newest paradigm must be a conceptual model of cosmic origins. It must include the omniscience of universe, which may be transcendental in its velocity to the physical speed of all radiation. The metaphysical generalized conceptioning of this imaginable, theoretical, eventually provable phenomena are gravity and gravitation. We can associate awareness of it with metaphysical conceptioning of the mind's pattern recognitions where no other concept word choice could possibly suffice. Since gravity is all wavilinear, casting no shadows, is cohesively cohering, and waves are metaphysical pattern integrities. The metaphysical pattern integrity waves articulate as physical phenomenon, Synergetics 326.40. Water, air, or electromagnetic fields are physical phenomena. The metaphysical pattern integrity waves of which humans communicate but cannot directly sense, but eventually can comprehend, was it not for the environmental displacement, as awareness evolution includes spheres to spaces and spaces to spheres, closest packing conceptualities. History comprises the PRJWBCS into which every new generation of humans is born, and who did not know of the parameter of this 21st century acronym. Instead, educated ignorance disproportionately repositions the repetitive omission, selecting those factors to promote, gradually making its way into the 21st century's second decade, to eventuating subsequent degrees of cancellation. Cancellation, nullification, negation, and omission environmentally correlate and correspond to perpetuating absences of forethought of the eternal omniscient mind's absolute perfection, integral self-testing, human capability to reintegrate and restore timeless zero-phase unity. How could this become as natural as taking a breath of fresh air, which is essential for surviving all environmental conditions? I ask, when by law the PRJWBCS redirects the information-gathering, local problem-solving mentality oppositely, from vertex to triangular opening, technically preventing escaping the educated redundants, the subconscious ignorantly fearful cautionary, so that the punitive institutions as excruciation of the educating institutions, regardless of the claim to assert every case of possible contradiction. This occurred throughout history and continues to be the culminating cases by legally engendering reiterations of the regenerative contradictions as an insufficiently explored man-made law for justice's final authority to successfully quell consciousness evolution. The J factor often operates as a perpetuating inducer of malevolence so that humans behave accordingly, thereby guaranteeing justice and any form of governing power to profit at the people's expense. Paying for justice by degrees of sacrificing freedom is mindless of the ramifying culminations where all the PRJWBCS factors interrelate cyclically as interaction in opposition to unity. The entire fiasco from emulative overlapping generations of histories throughout the room of permitted ignorance that was always going to culminate to the greatest degree of imbalances, disequilibrium, and plays out in deranged episodic durations. This is when identifying the personality disorders too often occurs aeons after its predominance and influence strategically convince the PRJWBCS controlled populations to try again. But in the complacence and conformity, humans fail to comprehend what was not apprehended to begin with. The lag rates between apprehension and comprehension is, as the 6 degrees of freedom coincide with metaphysical generalized conception fields of thought, as consciousness, evolution, self-other awareness of the operational field complex, a cosmic hierarchy, the isotropic vector matrix, whereat knowledge organizes itself geometrically. Thank you for your undivided focus, if that happens to be the case, and your continued curiosity and interest in this important research project with anticipatory design science predominantly metaphysical objective to manifest a true democracy. Links will follow at the end of the podcast video, including previous episode references.